you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
S-I-C-K,
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. CF Montreal Talk.
Here's the chance, they've got the goal! Absolutely incredible! Cameron Porter delivers the goal to send Montreal Impact into the CONCACAF Champions League semi-final.
The sickest CF Montreal podcast. Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Tibi. Embrace your true nature. Innov Sport.
Collaborer avec Innov Sport, une compagnie d'ici afin de dynamiser l'apprentissage et la pratique du sport pour tous et partout.
Les différents produits permettent de rester actif tout en développant sa confiance, son autonomie et sa technique. Des produits efficaces, progressifs et personnalisés avec le logo de votre école.
Innov Sport, pour tous et partout.
And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Wednesday, October 23rd, and the CF Montreal season is over. And I can tell you selfishly that I'm actually very distraught about this, pretty much devastated, because if CF Montreal would have beat Atlanta United last night at Stade Saputo in the one-game wild card, of course, everyone knows what that would have meant. That would have meant that their season would have continued for at least another 2.5 weeks. That would have meant that they would have had an appointment with Lionel Messi and his friends, Alba and Busquets and Luis Suarez, and the list goes on and on. That would have meant that they would have played game one of the 2 out of 3 in Fort Lauderdale this Friday. It would have also meant that I would have attended, because I could tell you that I was looking at the flights for the last 3, 4, 5 days, trying to figure out when I could leave, how I could pull it off without missing radio and TV and the podcast and stuff like that. And believe you me, I had a plan to get there. I would have loved to have been in Florida to watch game one. I had Saturday, November 2nd circled on my calendar, which would have been game 2 at Stade Saputo. And I also had Saturday, November 9th circled on my calendar if game 3 would have been necessary. And knowing me, I probably would have wanted to go to Florida again to watch that one. There would have been so much hype. It would have been so great for soccer in our city. It would have been so great for coverage. It would have been so great for the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. It would have been so great for my radio show, Le Forum on BPM Sport. It would have been so great, obviously, for the players, the staff, the management, the ownership, the fan base. It would have been so great for everyone. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, as CF Montreal lost last night in front of their fans, which made it an even tougher pill to swallow. Joining me to talk about it right now, one guy, no stranger to big games, wildcard games, playoff games, games in Montreal, their former captain and former number 8, Patrice Bernier. Hi, Pat. How are you?
How's it going, Tony? Hello to everybody listening.
I'm a little bit, even though I say the real things and I come down pretty hard on them. I mean, I wanted them to win. I'm distraught. For all the reasons that I just mentioned, right? And look at the atmosphere last night. And very unfortunately, I wasn't there. And if I could have been there, I would have loved to have been there last night. But I've said this before. You know, I have a contractual obligation that I got to do the Sick Podcast at 10 p.m. live to talk about the Montreal Canadiens. So I had to watch the Canadiens game and I had to go on. But I'm watching the game. And while I'm watching the game on my TV, I have the CF Montreal game on my iPhone right in front of me. And the ambiance looked unbelievable.
Oh,
unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I was sitting there watching the game in my seats. And those are magic moments. Montreal, when you're in the playoffs, no matter which sports, but definitely you mentioned I had the factor of living them at Stade Saputo. It's electric, and you just saw towards the end of the game, second half, when the team was turning things around, how when you play, and I read some people on Twitter saying, you know, Montreal is kind of like underrated as a soccer place, because yes, in the MLS, it's not the league, it's not the place that's profiled highly in terms of games. But definitely, it was electric. It was magic. Unfortunately, they couldn't pull it off, because they would have been great, a 2-2 and come out with the victory at the end.
Yeah.
Reminded me of my good old days, 2015, 2016, when we had the playoffs, and how Montreal can be very vibrant when their team is in the ML.
Yeah. Portland is something special. Of course, everyone knows that by now. LAFC could be very special as well. There's several teams in several stadiums, but you're right. Montreal is very underrated. And to those who have never experienced Montreal before, I tell them, you have to take in a playoff game in Montreal and Stade Saputo. Look, Stade Saputo is not the most sophisticated stadium. It's not the most expensive stadium, but I enjoy going to watch a soccer game at Stade Saputo. I'm not going to lie to you. I really do. I mean, do I wish it was downtown? Yes. Do I wish it would be downtown in a quartier de sport, a sports area where there wouldn't be that much traffic? Yes. But every time I'm at Stade Saputo, I enjoy going to watch a soccer game there, especially when the weather is good weather to watch and to play. But it's too bad. It's over, and it hits you right in the face. I could imagine what it must feel like if you're a player or you're a coach or a member of the staff, because you're in season, and then all of a sudden it just hits you right in the face, and all of it, season's over. Like Joseph Martinez, for example, yesterday, like he almost looked like he was in shock after the game. Like, this is it.
Yeah, I saw him. He was standing in the middle. It took some time for him to join the team as they were doing their lap to thank the fans. But you got to understand, a few weeks ago, nobody thought about this situation. They maybe hoped on their locker room, but nobody expected this. And when you look at their 7 last games of the season, they have 5 wins, 1 draw, and a loss. So when they're going into this, they're like, hey, we're in the vibes where we can go and maybe do something if we win this playoff game against Atlanta. So they saw in themselves the confidence that exuded in the last few games that they could probably go further and meet Messi and friends. But it ends abruptly in penalties. And yeah, it sinks in because the season's done. And now you have to start doing the debrief of the season and start thinking of next season already. And it's going on holidays. And it's another 2 months or and a half of waiting time until it starts in January. So, yeah, it sucks when it happens. I remember 2016 when we lost the final to Toronto. We saw ourselves in the final. I saw myself going to Seattle and beating Seattle. And then when it's done, you're like, everything you gave, all the energy, all the team, all the bonding that you did at the end of the year because of the playoffs with all the rush that came in, it's just abruptly done. And it took time to soak it all in, that say, okay, it's finished. We lived a great moment, but what could have been? So I'm pretty sure some of those players are thinking, man, we should have beaten Atlanta because they were the better team on the field. Let's be honest. I was there. Montreal was the better team. Now that's the reality of football. It's not because you're the better team that you always win.
Well, and we're going to discuss how Atlanta did score their goals. And now that the season is over for the players, they can sit back and have a beverage. And hopefully it's a little bit to Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for cool days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light, ultra refreshing. So I'll agree with you. Montreal did play a good game last night. But I think Atlanta played the kind of game that they wanted to. It was a counterattack game for them. And they clearly had a plan to put the ball in the box in the air. And they clearly took advantage of 2 opportunities that they had. And they scored 2 goals on headers. Now, let's get to Montreal's lineup before we get to everything else. And once again, Sirois in goal, Waterman, Campbell on the right, and Alvarez on the left. Should be noted, by the way, that last regular season game, Corbo was there and Waterman was playing as a 6 because Saliba, of course, had been yellow carded. But with Saliba back, he was next to Bittt right in front of the back line. Marshall Ruddy at right wing back, Edwards at left wing back, and Clark and Duke in behind Joseph Martinez. On the bench, Breza's your backup keeper, of course. And then there's Corbo, Pierce, Yankov, Opoku, Ibrahim, Vilsaint, Souza, and Bugai. Bugai, Souza, and Yankov do not enter this game. And we'll get to the substitutions in just a minute. Let's take a look at the timeline if we can. All right, okay. Lennon scores at the 29th minute off of a cross from Amador. And at the 44th minute, it's Gregerson who scores on a cross from Miranchuk. Patrice, the left wing back and the left center back, I would say responsible for the 2 goals against. They end up losing their man, and it ends up being a header for goal on 2 occasions for Atlanta United.
Yeah, look, as much as we said that it's transition, that first goal, if I'm correct, Matt Dole put a video on that Atlanta actually connects a few passes before they score that goal. They whip it in, and this game was a bit the reality of what the season was for the CF Montreal. First half, they played well, but they lost focus, wasn't alert, which is the reality of some goals they took this season and some games that they've played. And that first goal was, yes, they pressed, but not as much as well as they did in the second half. They take that cross, and I invite people, if you go see the goal, you'll see literally a minute before they pass, that same player makes that run. He just doesn't, the ball's not played. And then he runs again, and he beats both of them. So tells me that on that first half, we saw most of the season of the CF Montreal, which is wasn't always alert, wasn't always on the same page, a bit hesitant, and that's the goal they took. And then the second goal, well, that's from a set piece, but still it was around the same area and the same types of mistakes that we saw all year long. And in the second half, we saw the team that we saw in the last 7 games of the season.
On the goal where Raheem Edwards loses his guy, I think right before that, Caden Clark has an opportunity to chase the ball down and isn't able to get there, and maybe not moving his feet as much as he should. I find no one's talking about that, and I think that should be something to talk about, because I mean, as good as Caden Clark was in the last month and a half, ever since he got here, it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, no complaints whatsoever. I kind of think, because I saw people mocking the substitution last night of Caden Clark coming out, Caden Clark didn't look right to me last night. So I don't know if he had anything physical, but he didn't look right.
No, he didn't play a great game. It was totally understandable that he's taken out, because kudos to Atlanta. They found ways to not let him be in positions where in the last few games he's been efficient and scoring and giving opportunities. Now also, let's not forget, Caden Clark is still a young player. He still has to learn how and where to go get the game when it's locked. Because you saw Joseph Martinez has the experience. He knows patience. I got to wait. And when that opportunity pops up, Caden Clark had difficulty getting the ball, and difficulty getting into motion and getting to the right positions, because Atlanta was doing a good job blocking the middle of the pitch, which Montreal took second half and substitutions to understand that they needed to put it crosses. They need to put people in the box. So him coming out, I don't think anybody would have said, yes, because he was probably the hot hand lately. But in that game, he wasn't showing anything. While Bryce Duke was a lot more, I don't want to say menacing, but moving a lot, trying to provoke things. And so you can understand why Laurent Courtois goes, you know what? Who do I take out? Bryce Duke has been doing well. He doesn't necessarily score, but he gives passes. And Caden Clark scores, but he doesn't seem to be efficient. And he brought in Ibrahim and Vilsain to bring some freshness, which helped. And Pierce
and Opoku.
Yeah, and Opoku and Opoku before. So, and you saw it help. There was a lot more movement down the left side between Pierce and Opoku. Vilsain was trying to make some runs to provoke things, and we saw what happened. A few minutes later, the team started scoring and getting into the position where we thought, they might come back into this game.
Well, listen, for me, the way I saw it, Pat, and you tell me what you think, and my comments are going to be brought to you by Playground. If you're looking for the ultimate entertainment experience, Playground has it all. Gaming, poker, fine dining, live music, DJs, all with unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Located just minutes from downtown Montreal, across the Mercier Bridge. Playground, your top destination for fun. To me, basically, I think what happened was they fall behind 2-0 at halftime. And then they make the changes that they make, and they bring in Vilsain, and they bring in Sanusi, and they bring in Opoku. To me, they look like a team that once they were losing 2-0, the pressure was off. They threw caution to the wind. They decided to go for it. And they said, you know what? We need to open up, because at this point, we're losing 2-0 at home. So we're going to open up, and either we're going to end up tying up the game, or we're going to end up losing 4-0. It's the risk you take. They took it. They got a lucky break, because on Pierce's cross, there's no way a keeper, let alone a keeper with the experience the Atlanta keeper has, that should have dropped that ball for Martinez to basically put it in an empty net. but they got a break to let themselves back in the game. And then, good on Opoku, and no one's talking about this, who put himself in a position at the top of the box that if he's fouled right there, it's a penalty kick. Took a while. They went to VAR, and it was a penalty kick. What did you think of the foul, and what did you think of the penalty kick awarded?
At first I thought it was a foul top of the box, but clearly the VAR looked at it and he was inside. So shows that, the guys who came in said, look, we need to, yes, you're losing 2-0. But, the first 10 minutes of the half, I'm like, man, they don't look like they're a team that's going to come back. We saw Atlanta having transition after transition opportunity. How many times that Lobanice and so on had a opportunity to make it 3-0? They missed their shot. Serrois scored. It's not until he put in Pierce and that the guys understood we're not going to score via the goals we've scored in the last few games in the middle. We're going to get the ball to the side, and we need people in the box. Yes, it's a mistake by the goalie, but if the people are not in the box and the ball is not put in the box, because the first half they were just going right to left, hoping to find the right situation to combine inside. But when they whipped those balls in, they were creating havoc. And then the goalie makes the mistake, but you have to create the opportunity. But the penalty, fantastic. Opoku, he moved, he came in, he was trying to create space for Pierce to cross or getting into position to cross himself, and he got into the box. Well, that ball goes through. If he's not there, the defender collects it, they go up, and it's maybe never 2-1, 2-2. And he gets the penalty. And then Joseph Martinez has to do his job, because people forget he was facing his former teammate, which they probably did penalties of quite a few times. And you saw the bickering after goals they scored. But Opoku did a great job coming in and to.
But you're right. Yeah, you're right, Pat. That's so tough when you go up against your former keeper. The keeper can be in your head.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, and I remember the World Cup 2006. When Trezeguet went up against Buffon, France versus Italy, right? Yes. He overthought it. And in the end, he ends up rattling one off of the bar. Zinedine Zidane, who went up against Buffon, scored early in the game. I think it's 7 or 8 minutes into the game. But he had to pull a rabbit out of his hat, and he actually did a Panenka, which touched the bar and went right over the line. But when you go up against your keeper that knows you, you have to come and sometimes try something different, or win the psychological game and try something that you always do, thinking that the goalie is going to think you're trying something different. So he beat him. Look, he scored in the game to narrow it at 2-1. He takes the penalty kick when Opoku gets fouled. He wants it. He steps up. I got it. He takes it. It's fantastic. They go to penalty kicks. He says, you want to put your best shooter number one, because if you don't end up getting to your best shooter, you missed an opportunity. He says, I'll be that number one shooter. He goes, same shot. I can't say enough about Joseph Martinez. I know he wasn't unanimous in the locker room at some points of the season. I know that he wasn't unanimous with his coach. I know he wasn't unanimous with the new management team, who I was told tried to trade him at the deadline, but couldn't. But he was amazing down the stretch, Pat.
Hey, it's Joseph Martinez. We spoke about this. He's a player. He scored over 100 goals in MLS history. He is a striker. And I don't care your name is Landon Donovan, Chris Wondolowski, Kai Kamara, or Joseph Martinez. Even if your name is Cristiano Ronaldo, even Lionel Messi, they have egos, big egos. We all have egos, but some of them, the goal scorers, they have a different persona. Didier Drogba was here. Great guy, but I'm sure when it's time to score and when he's not scoring, you get a bit irritated. How many times have I seen videos, YouTube, you talk about Alan Shearer, Ruud Van Nistelrooy, all those guys said, when a team won, but I didn't score, I was happy, but I wasn't completely happy because I didn't score. That's how scorers are. That's their mentality. Now you have to be able to live with their personality and their character. Sometimes they bring you very high, and we saw the end of the season. And sometimes they bring you low because they're so demanding. They compress the others, okay? And it's a type of player that you have to deal with. And I mentioned it. I don't know how many stories I know about Atlanta. I have a good friend. He's very good friends with him. this is how Joseph Martinez is. But you can get the best out of him. Now you just have to know how to do it. And good thing, end of the season, he turned it around and they got the best of him. And you saw him when he scored that goal. What was he doing? Come on, guys. We got another goal in us.
It was amazing.
He's
if
a guy.
there were ever any doubt, he's a real one, Pat. He's a real one. I mean, I knew he was already. Didn't have to prove it to me. You don't get to that level and play the way he has over the course of his career if he's not. He's a real one. He is special, like you said. Sometimes you're going to have to handle him with white gloves, and sometimes you're probably going to have to give him his space. But now the big question is, do CF Montreal bring back Joseph Martinez, who was the second highest paid player on the team behind Victor Wanyama, was making over $1.3 million. We know that it's a team and an ownership group that is reluctant to spend money. They're not crazy about giving this amount of money to a player. Actually took quite a selling job to be able to convince them to sign him, who Olivier Renard pushed for badly. And you have to think of Olivier Renard too today, and not only the current management team, because without Joseph Martinez, they're not going anywhere without an umbrella. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they got there. You've talked about the karting. You've talked about the foot golf. We talked about the acquisition of Kidd and Clark. But without Joseph Martinez, they're going nowhere without an umbrella. So now they got there. And what does your gut tell you?
My gut, that I don't think my personal gut tells me I don't think we see him next year. But
who's going to replace him?
To replace him, there's players in the league. There's always a forward somewhere.
In the league, you're right. Because in-house, I don't think they think that they have the answer in-house right now.
I don't think there's somebody who can do what he does. Laurent Courtois said that at the beginning of the year. I haven't seen a player who moves like this. Even though they had a spat or whatever, he said, player like that who moves the way he moves, I've played against him. He's in the category, and please, it's not Marco Di Vaio. It's just the type of striker that looks for the movement off the ball, that tries to get forgotten by the defenders and knows when to move, strike. I remember his first years, 2017 with Almiron. They were a handful, okay? And he was younger, fresher, Sparta. Now the reality is, I think he has an option year, if I'm correct. Now the option year is how much money? Because people forget he was on $4 million last year. He was on a pay cut this year. So assuming the second year, he might get a raise, or it's implemented in the raise. Now, do you want to pay that amount? I think he validated that amount. He scored hundreds of goals. He showed it this year that he's still over 10 goals more. And he's the fifth guy after Di Vaio, Drogba, Piatti, and Kyoto to score 10 goals or more in a regular season.
As you know, Nacho Piatti in his final season with CF Montreal, the club had the option year on him, that they had the opportunity to exercise it or not. And I know you know this, because if I know it, you definitely know it. And Piatti wanted to leave. He wanted to return to play in Argentina. You'll correct me at any point if I'm wrong here, Pat, of course, okay? He wanted to return to play in Argentina. And they said, oh, no, you don't, because they knew that he had value. Yes. And so they signed him to a contract. They picked up the option, which he didn't want them to pick up. And at that point, they ended up working out a deal with his team in Argentina to send over a couple of players over here. And the trade was made at that point. So they had an asset. They said, we're not going to let the asset walk for nothing. And I think they're going to do the same thing with Joseph Martinez. They know that Martinez, the way he finished the season the last month and a half, he answered a lot of questions that maybe some teams may have had, because a lot of teams were scared off of Joseph Martinez. That's why Montreal signed him, because nobody else wanted him, and not at that money. And now a lot of teams are probably saying, you know what, we should have signed Joseph Martinez, because there's only so many players that can do what he does, and he did it again. I think they're going to pick up the option and going to try and trade him.
Who wouldn't? I say the logical business side of it. Are you just going to let him go because you don't want to pay, let's say, the amount that he's going to be due the next year? No, you're going to see he's proven to the league, I can still score goals. There is a team in this league that's going to say, hey, you know what? We need a striker like him. I'm thinking of Charlotte. They're trying to get rid of Swiderski. They've been trying for a year or so. Maybe there's teams in there who are willing to make a big trade that maybe for CF Montreal will be valuable in terms of GAM or maybe another player. So it would make sense. Didn't they do the same thing with Kai Kamara last year?
Yeah, so, they did. So look,
the forward value, I would assume you pick up the option and you try to trade him. Now, Does he fit into what Laurent Courtois wants for next year to have him around? Because everything for the last week says this is the guy we want around our team. And I mentioned to you, you cannot just count on Samuel Piet to rally the troops. You need Waterman, you need Edwards, you need a Martinez, you needed a Victor Wanyama, but we all know how this was another type of story. But you need veteran players around the second youngest team in the league. So I don't know what's going to happen with Martinez. My gut feeling is he probably won't be here. But I do understand. I would like to have him around because you see what he brings. Not just the goal scoring, is the energy in training saying, hey, I'm not satisfied with just scoring goals. I want to win games. I won titles in this league. I won Golden Boot. I won the MLS Cup. I won the MLS Supporters Shield. He's a winner. And you want people with that pedigree around the young players you want. Yes, you have to take care that sometimes he is going to be bitter. You're going to have to cater to him a bit more. That's the type of player that I would like to have around this young team that needs these types of players to push them towards the top.
Feel bad for Pierce, who missed his penalty kick, because I think he was a good acquisition for CF Montreal. We talked about Caden Clark. I think he was a great acquisition for CF Montreal. Bugai was not really a difference maker at all. He was a bench player for CF Montreal. He was another acquisition. Jaquil Marshall-Rutty, he played all the time when he got here. And I think that maybe one day he can be a good acquisition. Right now, I will tell you respectfully, I was very underwhelmed by what I saw from Jaquil Marshall-Rutty. First of all, I have my doubts of him as a right wing back. I think he's a box to box. I'm no scout and no expert. I've been wrong before, but I don't think he's got the pace at right wing back. And I think he wants to be able to be more free on the field than having that kind of responsibility. But I was underwhelmed, Pat. I was very, very underwhelmed. He's young. He's a 2004. He's got a long career ahead of him. There are a lot of teams that at one point saw a bright future for him, and not that many do anymore, but maybe there still are some. He's got time on his hands. He's still young, but I was underwhelmed, Pat. I really was. And one of the things
Tony, we spoke about this when he arrived. I said, look, as a right back, wing back, he'll bring certain things. I think he's deceptively fast. Is because he's got that nonchalant style. Because we saw it in the game in Atlanta. There was a ball played. He got that ball way before the player. So he has pace. It's just not explosive pace that you see right from the get-go, because he seems to always going into third gear, fourth gear. But when he wants to go to fifth gear, I think he's not in the fastest players in the league, but he's a fast player. Now, I mentioned to you, in Toronto, they tried him as a number 8, and it ended up that he had some good performances. Maybe because he's more into the game. You're connected there. Right wing back, you're dependent on what happens in the midfield. You get the ball. And I don't think he's got the confidence right now to take people on one-on-one. He can do it. I just don't think he's at that confidence. Well, in the midfield, I remember mentioned it in the podcast we did early on when he arrived. Bob Bradley had put him in the midfield and found it interesting because he has offensive assets, tools that you saw a little bit more there. I think Jaquil, he's a nice kid, but on the field, you have to become another persona. You have to be, I want the ball. I got to show, I got to do things on my own and take the risk and take the criticism that some guys are going to say, you know what? Why did you try it? Hey, my bad. I tried something.
No, but you took the words out of my mouth. Like, it might be harsh what I'm going to say, and it might be totally false. Something missing. We talked about that famous La Grinta, right? That Jason DeTulio wanted to instill in all the players at the academy and throughout the club. Right now, he doesn't have it. I don't know if that's something that you can go out and get. I mean, I don't think he's the biggest gamer. We talked about Martinez being a gamer. I don't quite see it yet from Marshall-Rutty. And we talked about Martinez. Like, Martinez looked devastated that his season was over. Don't get me wrong. I don't think anybody wants to lose on that team. But I think that there's just some that hate it more than others and are willing to go that extra mile. I don't think he's quite there.
No, and I hope he'll be there. I'm thinking of, I'm going to take back to Nathan Saliba. Okay? They're not the same profiles, but the same age. And they played together, if I'm correct, under 15 national team when there was camps. I think certain players, at one point, you have to develop a persona on the field. Everybody can be a nice. Some guys, how many times have we heard, and I'm going to NHL, Brad Marchand. Everybody says about Brad Marchand, great guy off the ice. Yet he's the guy most players hate to play against, and everybody would like to have on their team. Sometimes you have to develop a persona on the field to just get the mental part. The mental. I think certain players can have. They have to work on it. Some players have it naturally. They just, whatever their circumstances brought them to football, they're winner. I can't say they're winners, but they just they have that grit. Him, I think you've put him in the position he can work at it to become the player he wants to be. Because all these kids, I'm sure they want to play in Europe, they want to play for a big club, they want to make a lot of money. Now, what are you willing to do to become that player? So that's what Jaquil has to work on, because his assets, his skill assets, when he was in the league, they signed him at 15 in Toronto. At 16, 17, some top clubs in the world were looking at him.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
The tool set is there. Now it's for him to rekindle and show that talent on a regular basis. And I agree with you, as a right wing back, I don't think you're always hoping he's going to do something more, but he ends up playing the same type of regular game. But I think this is my personal opinion. From what I've seen him play in Toronto when he played in midfield, I think in another position, it will be interesting to see.
I think so too. And disappointed. I found that when Vilsaint came in yesterday, like every other player, there's days you want the ball more than others, right? I found like he wanted the ball yesterday, right? Okay, we're losing. Give me the ball. We're going to try and make something happen. And Marshall, for the runs that Vilsaint was making, I think Marshall already found him once when the pass was like with a 3-foot pass, but he wasn't looking for him. I don't know. I'll credit the coaching staff, by the way, for being very alert, because we talked about, some scenarios of what you got to do in different moments of the game. They recognized they were going to penalty kicks. They brought in Gabriel Corbo, who's very comfortable, even though he's a center back, who ended up taking a penalty kick and ended up scoring. We know that it's a game of the penalty kicks. The players will tell you that it's you roll the dice. In the end, let's take a look at the penalty kickers. We have them here. Okay. Actually, the timeline when CF Montreal scored, we'll bring up the second half stats first. All right, there you have it. It was Martinez scoring at the 63rd off of a rebound that landed right on his foot that the goalkeeper gave up. Of course, Opoko was fouled. Martinez decides to take the penalty kick at the 89th minute. They had 8 minutes of stoppage time. They bring in Corbo before the game is over for Campbell, and then they go to penalty kicks. Montreal's got your first shooter. Martinez puts up his hand, says, "Don't worry about it. I'll take it. Let's bring up the penalty kicks now if we can." And he goes the exact same spot. He scores. McCarty, he scores for Atlanta. It's 1-1. Pierce shoots, and he's stopped. Rio scores for Atlanta. Saliba scores for Montreal. Moranchuk scores for Atlanta. Corbo scores for Montreal. Williams scores for Atlanta. And if Vilsaint misses, the game is over, but he scores. And then Atlanta ends up scoring their last penalty kick to score all 5. I know that Sirois took some heat by some. I always find it very tough when a goalkeeper gets heat for not stopping penalty kicks.
Yeah, I find it funny also because
I find it's a little bit severe, but I'll say this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say this. I think in the end, though, the experience of the Atlanta keeper, I don't know if you saw, he was going to try and waste time to go see the ref, the fans, somebody throw a bottle, stop, whatever. Maybe it threw Pierce off a little bit. I also did find it a little bit odd. You see Luca Bucci, he's talking. The goalkeeper coach, he's talking to Sirois. And the 5 shots, and he's not close to any of them. But me personally, I'm not going to give a keeper blame for not saving a penalty kick. I'm not going to do that.
No, I saw some of the comments, and I'm like, look, the game is supposed that the goalie's not supposed to save the ball. It's just because now we've seen World Cups, Euros, and you see goalies making 2 or 3 saves. And how many of these goalies actually make 2 or 3 saves? Not that many. But I agree. The ones who have a persona, who come in there, or who, Emilio Martinez is the one that everybody will reference for, because it seems like every shootout, he pulls out 1, maybe 2, sometimes 3. But Jonathan said, well, it's an experience that he'll have to work on. And penalty shots, people say, I used to say also roll of the dice. But there's this guy, Guy Jourdain, who wrote a book called Pressure. And he says about the preparation of shootouts, what you have to do as a shooter, maybe even sometimes as a goalkeeper, to put yourself, because it's a mind game. It's 1v1. Even though the goal is that big, certainly you saw Brad Guzan. Him and Joseph Martinez are friends. But he understood, I'm playing for my team. I'm trying to win. I got to try to get in his head. And if I have to bicker with him a bit, he scored, chitter-chatter, blah, 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 is to try to get into the mind frame of the player or disconnect them from a mind frame. So kudos to the ones who shot. But look, Jonathan Sauvain made some saves in there, and definitely the shooters shot well. Atlanta shooters, for me, they all shot well. Pierce, I kind of told myself he's going to shoot there. Now, either he shoots really hard and Guzan doesn't get a chance to get there, but Guzan did get the goal. And like you said, Guzan is what, 37, 38?
Yeah.
Experience, much more personality there in terms of that time. And Jonathan Sauvain is a young goalie who probably will learn from these circumstances. We forget, Leagues Cup 2 years ago, he made some saves. People are thinking, he's not good on penalty shots. He made some saves in 2 years ago. Now, I don't expect goalies to be the ones who save the day. I expect the shooters to make their goals or maybe miss.
Pat, we're going to wrap up the show in the next 30 seconds. I would imagine we're going to have a year-end presser from CF Montreal by the end of the week, and that'll give us another opportunity. I'm hoping you can make it next week because we're probably going to find out some information, right? And on some of the players and some of the decisions the management team is going to take. But I think it's safe to say that even though it was a season of ups and downs, the way it ended and getting into the playoffs, that Laurent Courtois will be back next year as head coach of CF Montreal, right?
I would assume so. Look, first-year coach, we talked about the mistakes, maybe a rookie coach, but found the recipe, the formula, and I remember 2023, 2024, the way it ends. It's not the same feeling. Even though they got knocked out, the feeling is, okay, they're going somewhere with this. Now, which pieces are we going to bring in to make this team a bit better? And that suits Laurent Courtois because he probably has a style that now guys are fitting in. Now, which players that we could bring in? Because the new management or the people in place had bringing Caden Clark, Jaquil Marshall-Rudy, Tom Pierce, and everything. And now they know they have to go get some other pieces because some pieces are going to leave and other pieces are going to arrive. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens at the end of the week and in the following months for 2025.
Look, overall, I think it was a good season. I mean, anytime
it finished off well.
Well,
how you started, they remember how you finished. So I will say it was a good season because they made the playoffs.
Listen,
they still have lots of work.
The team that spends the least amount of money on salary in the league made the playoffs and lost on penalty kicks in a game that they probably should have won. It's not bad. Now, once again, in ending, Gabriel Gervais will tell you, we can stick with our club philosophy because they got in the playoffs when there's a bunch of teams who spend more money who did not, and everyone will look at Toronto. But in the end, they also lost to a team that spent a little bit more money and had a couple of DPs. So maybe the truth is somewhere in between.
The truth is young players, but some of them cost. And I'm telling you, there's some young players that are interesting that you can get for a certain amount of price if you do the work. And I'll take to Gabriel Gervais. He said in the past, what was our analytics to getting players? Because as much as Olivier Renard did a great job with Vasily, are we getting the players that suit what we want? Now, if they do the job, then maybe you can go and spend $2-3 million on the right young talent that will pan for you in 1-2 years, and maybe you sell them 2 years down the line. But there's still work to do on that, even though you're the lowest salary in the league.
We look forward to the year-end presser, Pat. As for me, I'm going to watch Atlanta at Inter Miami on Friday, and I'm going to be in the biggest depression known to man watching, knowing that I could have been there and CF Montreal could have been there. But who knows? Maybe next year. Salut, Pat. Merci beaucoup.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Follow us on Twitter at SickPod, CFMTL, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Once again, year-end presser, most likely by the end of the week, and we'll probably bring you another CF Montreal podcast next week. And it's tough to think that, we're probably going to be on break for a couple of months in that respect, but that's how it goes. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast CF Montreal Talk on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.